And now for something very different from the regular steam locomotive reviews, that being a look at the Class 800 family of electro-diesel or straight electric trains, also known as intercity express trains, IETs for short, Azumas, Paragon, Nova 1, Evero, or whatever else the train operating companies are calling them this week. For whatever reason, and despite finding the seats rather uncomfortable on the Great Western units, I've come round to liking the IETs as a whole. Regardless of my personal opinion, these things have become a common and controversial part of the UK's railway scene ever since they were first introduced in 2017, to replace the iconic Class 43 HST with Mark III coaches, Class 91 with Mark IV Intercity 225 sets, Class 180s, and whatever else needed replacing on intercity services. You can drive 4 of the IET classes in Train Simulator Classic, thanks to an enhancement pack from Armstrong Powerhouse. But is the EP any good? Stay tuned to find out. AP released their Hitachi IET enhancement pack in December 2021, and it's available from their website for a staggering £20, or around 46 New Zealand dollars, at full price. The pack includes the Class 801, as you would expect, alongside representations of the Class 800, Class 802, and Class 803. It requires the old ECML London to Peterborough route of December 2013, as it is built on the old Class 801 model that you can get with that route, and said model dates back to 2014. And it shows. Come to think of it, I'm confused as to why Dovetail even made their Class 801 model when they did in the first place, considering the fact that none of the real 801s even existed yet at the time, and wouldn't start construction until 2017, eventually entering service in 2019. As for what's included in the IET enhancement pack, we'll start by going through the livery selection, which is as follows. Hitachi White, Great Western Railway for the imitation 800 and 802, LNER for the 800 and 801, TransPennine Express for the imitation 802, TPE Grey 802, Hull Trains 802, unbranded Hull Trains, and Lumo for the imitation 803. The Class 805, Class 807 and Class 810 are not represented in the EP because it was made before those 3 classes even existed, let alone entered service. Come to think of it, the Class 810 could be useful on AP's enhanced version of the Midland Main Line London to Bedford route, but if the 810 was ever brought to Train Simulator, you'd have to make a whole new model, rather than reusing the existing 801 model, because the 810 has shorter coaches and a noticeably different shape for the nose cone. I've been using footage of different trains passing West Hampstead Thameslink in lieu of any 810 footage, since I didn't see any of those bizarre units when I was in England. There's a decent amount of features in this EP, including, but not limited to, newly modelled coach-to-coach cables and corridor connections, modelled by Major Wells Design, realistic adhesion physics that change depending on various factors, wheel slip protection, driver-only or guard operation, fully functioning diesel mode, where applicable, realistic physics for both electric and diesel modes, pantographs raised at either end depending on your train formation, neutral section functionality, slow speed control for going through a train washer, automatic unit numbering, and an arcing pantograph in colder conditions. In the passenger view, AP changed the seat moquette to be different for each of the 5 train operating companies represented in the EP. However, not all the IETs have the same seat design in first class, so this interior is inaccurate for both Hull Trains and TPE 802s as well as the Lumo 803s. Hell, the Lumo trains don't even have first class in real life. Disappointingly, numerous special liveries that already existed at the time of the EP's release were not included as standard. The omitted special interest units were GWR 800-008 with rainbow decals, GWR 800-321 with a ridiculous orange mask on the cab ends, LNER 800-004 celebrating Scotland with tartan decals, and GWR 802020 when she still had garish NHS thank you decals. To add, the imitation 802s, in Hull Trains colours, are missing the vinyl nameplates that you would see on the real units. 20 of the GWR Class 800s, and 7 of their 802s, were already named by the time of the EP's production, and AP could have at least set up the standard GWR liveries to automatically show the appropriate names, if you set the right unit number in the scenario editor, but they didn't even do that. Meanwhile, one of the people from Semaphore Simulations made reskin packs to add the special interest Lumo and LNER units, along with representations of the Class 805 and Class 807. However, the LNER reskin pack was last updated in November 2024, so it doesn't feature the newer special interest liveries worn by units 801-205, 801-207, 801-224, and 801-228. Incidentally, whenever I look at the livery on LNER's 800-106, I instinctively read the unit's name as You Belong to the City, because it reminds me of that song from Glenn Frey. Alternatively, one could look at the You Belong name and potentially get it mixed up with a Pat Benatar song by the name of We Belong. Thinking back to GWR's 800-008 and 800-321, there are reskins available for these units as well. These were made by BH Reskins, and are still available from ATS, of all sites, as of mid-July 2026. As for the in-game audio, it sounds enough like the real IETs on the surface, but there is still room for improvement, particularly where the overall volume of the sounds, and the diesel sounds in particular, are concerned. Having now filmed numerous IETs in real life, I can do a few sound comparisons between the real units and their in-game counterparts. Aside from the use of a dated external model as its base, and the lack of a passenger view in standard class, another aspect of this EP that I really dislike is the use of the existing 801 cab interior from Dovetail's old model across all 4 classes. Considering the fact that a new cab interior was modelled for the Class 158 enhancement packs, I don't see why the IETs couldn't have received the same treatment. This results in inaccurate cab interiors for all classes in the EP, even the 801 herself. Upon comparing it with photographs of the real thing, I noticed that the in-game 800 and 802 cabs are missing the buttons for starting and stopping diesel engines, and that sort of spoils the immersion when you're driving these units. On some units, that space to the left of the middle screen is either blanked out or occupied by a small recession and a plug socket, instead of a clock and some buttons, as seen on all units in-game. I dare say someone else who's more familiar with these cabs in real life could let us know in the comments if they notice any other specific inaccuracies in-game. Meanwhile, the GSMR module and train management system screen don't work on any of the enhanced IETs. Go figure. The lack of a functional TMS screen means that the only way to change the train's destination signs is to look at them in the external view and use the F7 and F8 keys. If AP could add a functional TMS screen for the Class 175 enhancement pack, why was the same luxury not afforded to the IETs? After driving the Class 802 in Train Sim World 6, it's somewhat jarring to go back to her counterpart in TS Classic. The lack of diesel buttons in the imitation 800 and 802 cabs means that you can only change power modes with keyboard commands. Instructions on how to switch power modes can be found in the manual. I was confused upon looking at photographs of a real 803 cab interior and noticing that she has the diesel buttons too, despite the 803s being purely electric, and not even having a single diesel engine per unit for emergency use only, as is the case on the 801s. As for why I drove an imitation Class 800 into a military garrison, your guess is as good as mine. One good thing about AP's enhanced IETs in TS Classic is their versatility, and if you know where to look, a reasonable number of suitable routes are available for you to run these units on. However, some of those routes, such as ECML London to Peterborough and South Wales Coastal Bristol to Swansea, are set in a time period before the IETs enter service. As for scenarios, the IET enhancement pack includes 3 of them, as is normally the case with AP packs, but all the scenarios are for the Chat Moss route from ATS. Your mileage may vary, but personally, I refuse to buy anything from ATS due to my reservations against them, and it doesn't help that their payware stuff for TS Classic is often very expensive for what it is, and requires numerous additional payware packs on top of the routes themselves. Looking at you, Bittern Line and King's Cross to King's Lynn. Annoyingly, there's only one scenario on AP's own Powerhouse app that uses an IET as the player train, and while you can find other community-made scenarios elsewhere, a significant number of them have a laundry list of both freeware and payware requirements, so it can take a fair while trying to find them all if you don't have all the requirements already. In closing, I am of the opinion that the Class 800 through 803 Enhancement pack from ArmStation Land Rover was an interesting concept with a decent level of purpose in TS, but the execution is somewhat mediocre. The full price is utterly ridiculous for what you're getting, so if you're interested in picking up this EP for yourself, I would only recommend doing so if you can get it at a discount. The IETs in Train Simulator would have benefited from whole new models, rather than the devs essentially putting lipstick on a pig by doing up the old 801 model to look like the 800, 802 and 803. At the very least, the existing EP could be improved with a new cab interior and passenger view models that are accurate to the real 800s, 801s, 802s and 803s, not to mention better diesel engine sounds and a louder overall sound set. In its current state, I'm not sure where I'd rate the IET Enhancement pack, but in any case, and if you've stuck around to the end of the video, you win a small metal container made from bits of wood that holds microscopic crustaceans. It's the plank tin full of plankton.